Thank you for tuning to Expectations of the Culture. This is Essence, and I am the host and executive producer. I created the show because I was ready to remove the gag that I've had over my mouth for so many years and finally say to everyone, here I am, all of me, take me for who I am at this point, you know? Due to so many triggers that I had to deal with, I was originally diagnosed with clinical depression in 2006 when I was pregnant with my children. I never recovered from the depression, so it transitioned into postpartum psychosis, which I also never recovered from. So then I was eventually diagnosed as bipolar 1 with major depression. So this is something that I deal with. This is a part of my life, and I deal with it on a daily basis. Okay. I am not ashamed of my mental illness, and I just want to put that out there. I really am not ashamed of it. Unfortunately, though, I've been shamed by so many people, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So this is the platform that I want to use so people could be a little bit more understanding and empathetic to an illness that people suffer with that you can't see. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but just because you can't see it, it exists, you know? So I definitely want to offer some clarity on how we view life and, you know, how we process things a little bit differently maybe than other people. So I'm hoping that this opportunity allows me to bring that transparency to what mental illness really is. I'm hoping that through this platform, I will be able to partner with mental health advocates around the world. And I'm hoping that by doing this, we can reclaim our power and the suffocating stigma that causes so many people to suffer in silence. We want to eliminate that, okay? So again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at EOTC Podcast. Again, that's EOTC Podcast. And you can also visit our website at eotcpodcast.com. So today's episode is titled, Exposing the Culture. We will be discussing the meaning of mental illness. What does it mean to us? What does it mean statistically, factually, scientifically? And we also are going to take a little bit of some street feedback and see how other people define mental illness and how it affects them. So that's what today's episode is about. So let's get into it. I'm so happy and honored to introduce to you guys my guest. Her name is Phyllis Braxton, and she is the CEO and founder of PINK Consulting LLC, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So thank you so much for being here today, Phyllis. Though pink, the color, is very important to Phyllis because she is affiliated with AKA organization, PINK in the name of her business is actually an acronym meaning Pursuing Intercultural Needs and Knowledge. She will definitely speak to you guys about that in a few. I also want to just add a little caveat. She's one of my clients, so I support her on a full-time basis through my virtual consulting firm called Essence Clark Virtual Consulting. Feel free to check out the site. It's essenceclark.com. And she also doubles as a professional and personal mentor for myself. I don't know if she knows it. I'm pretty sure she probably does. But please offer a warm welcome to Phyllis.
Hello, world. It's great to be here.
So happy to be doing this with you. I even appreciate you taking out this time to, you know, bet on me because it's my first episode.
All
you know,
right.
and so I'm just so happy to have you here. So Phyllis, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself to the EOTC followers?
Sure. I'll talk a little bit now and just kind of maybe spread it out throughout our time together today. Mm-hmm. So the things I'll just start off with is, my name is Phyllis Braxton Frierson. I am the wife of Marcus and the mother of Ivy Zaire. We reside in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am originally from the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, small coastal town Moss Point, Mississippi, right on the border of Mississippi and Alabama. By way of the ATL, I always have to give my shots out to Atlanta. It changed my life. I went to a historically Black college, Morris Brown College, go Wolverines, there in Atlanta, and then was recruited to the state of Minnesota to pursue my master's degree. And so for the last 25 years, I've been here in Minnesota as a pretty much a diversity, inclusion, and equity expert. The name of my company, as you said, is PINK Consulting, and PINK is 14 years old. And so I am excited to be here this evening, and I'll talk a little bit more about what I do and why Essence has me on the show.
Great. Thank you so much for that information. Again, guys, I'm letting you know she is boss. She is so bomb. Definitely check out her website, www.pinkconsultingllc.com, so you can get to learn some more information about her business. She has an amazing page on there with all the organizations she's affiliated with that she has helped do her amazing work. So please go check her out. So I do have a few questions I want to ask you before we move into our social experience. Why did you become a mental health professional?
You know, I first became a mental health professional, I thought, for my family, right? Because we all have a family member or some family members, or for some of us, we feel like our entire family is insane in a way. Yes. And that might have some validity to it. But for me, on a more serious note, I knew that mental illness, that it runs in my family. And I knew that because I experienced mental illness myself. And so once I went back to school and got into my classes, I realized I was there for myself. And I also realized in my first semester, it was very life-changing. I remember in my class, psychodynamics, and we were studying different diagnoses. And I remember studying the different diagnoses, and when I had to research bipolar disorder, and I really began to understand, I understood what it meant. It was a moment of exhilaration and joy and complete sadness and paralyzation. I was so excited because I finally, after 46 years of life and struggling with mental illness over 20 years of that time, always felt like something isn't quite right. You know, I'm doing this stuff, I'm taking this medicine, I'm doing talk therapy, but something's just not quite right. Why am I having these such low lows and these really high highs? You know, and then folks who know me and who knew me, if I were to say I was depressed, they would minimize it, deny it, dismiss it, because you're Showtime. Phyllis, you that chick, you that girl, you're always upbeat, you're always on, right? You learn how to do that. Yes. And especially as Black professional women, we learn how to do that double dutch. Yes. You know, we have our feet in two different worlds or multiple worlds most of the time. And so when I read that diagnosis, I was like, that's exactly what my life has been like. And no one, I wasn't able to articulate it, or either my therapist, they weren't listening deeply enough, but there had not been an accurate diagnosis or connection. And then I also immediately felt sad and paralyzed, because I began to think about, oh shit, what if people find out? What if they know who you really are? Will you missing a meeting, or not being prepared for a phone call? Will every nuance of every little mistake or everything you do be associated with that diagnosis? Right. And so myself, like many other people, and especially Black women, we are in the closet, so to speak, around it, or have not been accurately diagnosed. And so that's why I went back. I thought I was going back for my family, but I went back for me.
That's really interesting that you say you felt happy, because it was like, wow, I have an answer, right? I was so resistant that I never felt happiness. I felt like, who am I now, right? Because the person who I was a couple of years ago could process the situation and could handle the situation differently. And it was just, for me, it was like, I want to go back to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just find like the switch? Like, do I get to the switch eventually, or do I just stay here? So it's very interesting to hear you say happy, because I was devastated, but I get it. I get it, because if you were having symptoms and you just didn't know what was going on, it's like, oh, okay, because it could be so much more worse, you know?
And I think when you get that validation, as sad and as paralyzing as it might feel in the moment, you get to happy.
Yeah.
And you get there, you know, as I was going through school to become a therapist, I was getting therapy in my classes. And note to self and everyone else, your therapist should have a therapist. If your therapist is not seeing someone, red flag.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get off my soapbox on that.
But now, is that something you can inquire? Can you ask that? How would you know?
I think it would be interesting to ask. I often, in my own practice, I go against a lot of what the European canon of therapy would suggest that we do and how we would behave.
Right.
Because culturally, I know if I'm sitting across from another Black woman, she's looking at me like, really, sis? You know, I see you with your frames, with your Tiffany's on, with your Tracy Nicole. Shout out Tracy Nicole in the ATL, with your Tracy Nicole off the shoulder on. You know, you wearing your heels. You're here in this office. I saw your Benz with PINK Consulting on it. You don't look like you have a care in the world. And if you're not willing to be vulnerable with the most vulnerable, I know what it took for my sister to get through that door, to make that appointment and to follow through on that appointment and get there. I owe her that transparency. But many therapists may not feel that way.
Yeah, and I don't think so, because I don't think anyone's ever, I've had so many therapists, because my kids are 13, so I've been dealing with this for 13 years, and I don't think that's information that I ever knew. But I also want to plug, eventually we will get to this topic, not all therapists work for you either. You have to find the one that works for you. Just because they assign it to you doesn't mean you guys are a right fit. And I have fired several therapists.
And that's what's so tough. I know it's tough, because it's like a starting over. And sometimes it can feel like, oh, shit, do I have to relive these stories again? And so it does take building some resiliency and tenacity within yourself to get through it. But I know this for sure. When you find that connection, there is nothing greater. There's nothing greater than finding that connection with that person that can be a window or a mirror for you, in a way that have different frameworks and processes and ways of helping you think through things and bring them together, synthesize them in ways that we just would not in our everyday at home day-to-day environment. And we need and owe it to ourselves to just give it to ourselves. I would say, even if you don't think you need it, just once a year, make an appointment and go talk with someone. And if you're good, check. But you never know what might come up in that
Yeah.
silence,
Yes.
and in that space.
Yes. And I've always believed that therapy is part of the recipe to having more good days than bad days. I mean, I see my psychiatrist every 3 months. We do our med check, but my therapist is probably the most important person in this process. And so, I see her on a weekly basis. And sometimes she don't even get a word in. I'm like, girl, da 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 da. And I'd be like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. You want to put anything into this? Just like, that was the longest 7 days of my life. I have so much stuff to talk to you about. And so I've noticed, like, when my therapy falls off, I fall off. Like, that is definitely because I only spend 10 minutes with my psychiatrist every 3 months. I spend 4 hours to 5 hours a month with you. You know what I mean? So we have a different responsibility to each other. And so to me, that's like the most important part of, your therapy or of dealing with your mental illness or disorder. But let's move on to the next question because we have so much stuff to talk about. What would you say is the biggest challenge that Black women are facing when it comes to their mental health?
Either not admitting that it's there and it's present for us, or knowing that it's there and not having the courage to get the support that we need.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really, I really hope this doesn't cause a divide. But I think it's also important for me to talk a little, just bring in a little bit about the research. We have a lot of research on Black women's mental health and from women of lower socioeconomic status. We don't have a lot of research around mental illness for women who would be considered professionals, college educated, people who are in the world of work or in a working profession. And what learned from some of this research, and I'll share the book that I'm reading with you a little bit later. What I'm learning is Black women that are in professional roles or in the world of work and, oftentimes predominantly white environments with predominantly white management and leadership, there is a higher correlation of anxiety and depression with those of us who are probably making more money, more educated, have access to healthcare.
Right.
There is more correlation of anxiety and depression for us than for Black women of lower socioeconomic status. What the heck is that about? And so I've really just been thinking about that. And the more that I think about it, I hypothesize, and my theory about that is the more you know and the more that you are held accountable to it on a day-to-day basis, the more anxiety you feel around it. Going to a workplace 5 days a week in predominantly possibly white-led or male-led environments, having the identity of being Black and female is like having a comorbid medical diagnosis. We are disenfranchised by gender and disenfranchised by race. No other identity has that intersection that will have some of the challenges and experiences that Black women will have in this world.
Wow.
And so given that, I just think reaching out, checking in, being aware, listening to our gut. If we've been sad for a while, checking in to say, what is that about? I have a job, I have health insurance, my family is in good health, my children are okay. So why am I feeling this? that might be a time to possibly check in with someone. So I think that's the biggest challenge we're facing.
And I have experienced that. Like, definitely, it's very difficult for a Black woman, because for me, it's like we are required to always be strong and always be okay. Right. So for me, it's like it's the influence that's my greatest downfall, because you have the family who don't, I don't identify with that. No, you don't. Mental illness is something that you are, what's the word I get a lot? It's like you're adopting it. So you're making it, you're identifying with it. Yeah, you're making it your identity.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just telling you that this affects how I make decisions and how I process things. Mm-hmm. Literally, that's all I'm sharing with you, you know? But
and
yeah.
In essence, you brought us something that's so important. Mm-hmm. Having people in the medical profession be interculturally competent, mm-hmm. right? Because not knowing that I have a bias or a stereotype that Black women are stronger, they're more resilient, they can take more. I might miss it that they're depressed because they're fighting through. They're always fighting through. We're smiling through it. Always. And so oftentimes our primary care physicians might miss it. Mm-hmm. So I want to do a public service announcement. You no longer have to go through your primary care physician to see a therapist. You can go to, I was about to say Yellow Pages. I'm dating myself.
Don't do it.
You can type in the Google nearest you, right? Yep. Check out with your health insurance providers. If you do not have health insurance, I am sure that there is some type of public assistant clinic in your area that has some type of mental wellness department on site that will take you. So correct. Please, you do not have to wait and say, well, I get my checkup every year. If my primary care physician then thinks something was wrong with me, then ain't nothing wrong with me. Mm-hmm. Listen to yourself. Listen to yourself.
And I think it's great that they've given people back that power. Like, because now I don't have to validate to you that I feel depressed, right? Because then what if you have a doctor, like you just said, who is biased to mental health? So now I'm depressed and you refuse to give me a referral. I'm just so happy that they completely disconnected that, because that didn't even make sense, really. You know what I mean? Okay, so we're going to move on. I love this question. So what gives you hope and courage?
Myself. And I know that might sound a little bit like self-serving, like yourself. Like, you know, there's a gospel song. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself, right? Sometimes you have to encourage yourself. And yeah, I give me hope and courage because I have comorbid diagnoses. I've been clinically diagnosed with anxiety, major depression disorder, and bipolar 2. My comorbid disorders are both psychologically, what I just explained, and also physiologically. I also have fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. So I have a lot going on in my body and in my head. Every day is a fight. Every day I wake up, I choose life, right? I choose life every day. And I am not just living through life. I'm excelling through life because I'm taking care of myself. I had to first admit there were some things that I can't do on my own. I had to admit that, Phyllis, medication is possibly going to be a part of your life. And then there are things that you're going to have to do. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate, very, very privileged to be a patient at the Mayo Clinic for my diagnosis for fibromyalgia. That's where I got my a second opinion. And on their wheel of the 16 methods or responses to fibromyalgia and chronic pain, not one of them is a pill.
Really?
There is no one pill for fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue. And so all 16 of those things that I was on campus in class for, like a college student, was learning about how to enact any and all of those things for my own health. So things like meditation, things like yoga, things like exercise, things like my eating regimen. I don't say diet because we have so much baggage around the word diet. So my eating regimen and what and how much of that I put in my body. Alcohol and drugs, you know, giving up my vodka, right? It changed my life. It also fed into my sleep habits. I hadn't slept in years. And so having to give up alcohol led to me being able to sleep through the night like a normative person would. And so I'm encouraged by that. But the thing that I know is that I work for it. It's work. It's work. You have to be in it for yourself every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes every day feels like the seconds feel like an hour. And those days are like, please, Lord, just let me get through this day, right? It can't last. This feeling cannot last.
Just let me get from 1 to 2 o'clock. That's all.
Yeah.
Just 59 more minutes. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Literally. I get it. You know, I'm resonating with you all the way.
Yeah.
And you know me, I could wake up with the case of the fuck it. Like, really? Fuck it. Right? But you can't. Then you wake up and you're like, oh no, you really gotta get up and you really gotta do your job. And I mean, because we work for ourselves, right? So there's no one dictating what we need to do when we need to do it.
Yeah.
And so you're right. You do have to give yourself that type of courage and that type of hope because nobody else can give it to you. And I think that's something that I'm finally getting to. And this podcast is part of that for me. This is completely therapeutic to be able to sit here with someone as phenomenal as yourself and be able to say, we got some things in common, you know what I mean? And we can talk about that and we can encourage each other through it. And, you know, just, I think that's part of my courage and my hope because I surround myself with amazing women. I do, like really supportive people. Yeah, absolutely. So you said you were going to give us some information on the book that you're reading. So definitely want to ask you about that so you can recommend it to our audience.
Oh my goodness. And I'm sure we'll put the title up or something like that to make sure you have it. But I think this is a must read for any Black woman or anyone who loves a Black woman, who cares about a Black woman and want to understand her better, even when she may not understand herself. And the name of the book that I'm reading now is called In and Out of Our Right Minds, The Mental Health of African American Women. Now, this book was published in 2003, so it's already 17 years old, but it reads like my current life. So I would be very interested in actually some of the research in this book is really leading my dissertation question. One other fun fact about me, I just recently returned to school pursuing my doctorate in leadership for change with a concentration in semantics, communicative leadership, and phenomenology. And so I really want to bring together my first master's of adult education, my second master's in social work and therapy, and this doctorate degree to come together to say, how do we as leaders not just talk about leadership, but how do we hold it in our bodies? So much of what happens to us is somatic. We hold happiness, joy, pain, frustration, anger. We hold all of those emotions in some ways in our bodies. And if we're not in tune with that, it will show up in our verbal, or it will show up in our behavior. And we'll say, who the heck was that?
Right.
Showed up, right? And oftentimes what it is, do I dare say it? It's trauma that we're holding in our bodies somatically that we're unaware of. So I'm really into connecting our thinking and what we're feeling in our bodies and how that shows up for us.
And I actually have a list of symptoms from the Mayo Clinic. So I can't wait to share that with you shortly. So I'm going to save the last question for the end. So the next part of this segment, or the next segment, I'm sorry, that's coming up now, this is where we discuss the social media experience. And the question that was asked on the platforms, was, how would you define mental illness if someone asked you, what it was? I was terrified to do this because I didn't know if people would respond. The response was overwhelming. I couldn't believe it. I did share with them what my idea or my definition of what my mental illness is defined as, but I'll share that when we discuss our personal experiences. So what I just want to do is read you some of their responses, and then we can kind of talk about it. And, do we identify with it? Do you know people who may identify with it? That type of thing. Cool. So, excuse me. And they were not picked by favorites. Okay. So they're in no particular order. The first one is, life feels unbearable. I become riddled with fear and feel paralyzed, overwhelmed, and needing relief. I have felt that so many times, like that paralyzation, like I can't even breathe right now, the level of anxiety that's running through my body. You know what I mean? I completely understand that paralyzing feeling. And it's just amazing to me how mental can relate into an actual physical experience.
Yeah. Mine, it feels like cement, like concrete blocks. That's what mine
just weighing you down.
Just weighing you down, and you kind of struggling to move and free yourself. And oh man, it is so heavy. It's so heavy. So I totally that resonates with me.
Yeah. And I'm sure people listening can understand that paralyzing feeling, because I honestly feel like even if you don't have a everyday bout with anxiety, if it hits you one day, you don't have to be diagnosed with anxiety, but you can just have a day or a trigger, and now you feel it. And I know that first time feeling has to feel like out of body experience, because you don't even understand what's happening. And anxiety is new to me. I actually didn't include that in my diagnosis because that wasn't my initial diagnosis. And I just had to add anxiety to it about 3 years ago. And it is horrible. I don't know how people have been living with this. It is horrible.
And it is one of the most common diagnosed mental health disorders.
Yes.
So many people have it and experience it, from generalized anxiety to very specific kinds of anxiety.
Yeah. The next one says, sometimes I just feel out of it, not all there. Emotionally tired, all the elements of depression, anxiety, and disassociation. Nobody is understanding me, and I can't communicate right with people. I feel weak.
Yeah.
When I was reading some of these, Phyllis, I felt the weight of what how they've defined what they're experiencing. You know what I mean?
And the feeling weak, because why can't I get myself together? Why can't I just will it to be so? I have everything going for me. I have life. I woke up on this side of the dirt. Why can't I get happy?
Mm-hmm.
And you feel weak and you feel helpless and hopeless that you can't do it. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
From moment to moment. I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've been there. Next one. A life where you're constantly doubting and lock yourself up in a prison within your mind. That's how I would describe my mental illness. I hope you're okay, and I'm here if you need to talk. Thank you. Guys, your strong friends need help too. Because sometimes your strong friends are just plain okay because they want you to think they're okay. I am guilty of this.
Yeah.
I'm so guilty of it.
Yeah, we oftentimes look like swans, like your shirt, Essence. We look like swans,
Just graceful.
gracefully, right?
Right.
On the surface of the water and kicking like hell.
Hell, try not to drown.
Right.
Sometimes minute to minute. Okay. I'm wading the water real good right now, but in 5 minutes, I'm probably going to be drowning. Yeah. The next one is the brain is fighting a personal disease that is common, but a cure has not been found. And wouldn't that be great if there was a cure? I think for me, Phyllis, when I realized I would have to be on medication for the rest of my life, I thought the hell out of this thing. And I remember I would call my mom crying. I'm so frustrated. I got these babies. I got these twins. Da, 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 da. And she would say, did you take your medicine today? How dare you ask me if I took? Of course I took my medicine. No, 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 you don't understand. Mind you, she has the same thing I have. You don't get it. Hang up. Sit there for a minute. Damn, when the last time I took that medicine? She might be on to something. You need to go take your medicine, darling, because you are not okay. The next one, a type of illness which exists in the mind. This should never make us feel ashamed to talk about, as it is a part of our lives. No, we shouldn't be, but for so many years we've been shamed.
Yeah.
You know, when I first realized there was a problem, you know what my friends and my family told me? You're okay, it's just the baby blues. That is not what's happening. I need you guys to understand. What is happening right now, these delusions and these hallucinations and things, that's not baby blues, honey. That is some clinical stuff I need to go get checked out. So oftentimes
being Black women, girl, give it to the Lord.
Oh, yes.
Pray about it, or your faith ain't strong enough, right? All of those kind of religious dogma type things is another barrier.
Yeah.
Is another reason why a lot of Black women don't reach out and see someone, because culturally we've grown up with a couple different things. One, don't be telling nobody your business.
Okay, right? Yeah.
That. And, you know, and definitely not a stranger. And in most cases, definitely not no white person.
Okay.
Be telling them our business, because you're going to end up saying something to them. Then they're going to come digging into our house and right. It goes on.
Now, and check this out. That's the expectation of our culture, right? The expectations of the culture, which has caused us to be gagged and suffocated, because so many people are suffering in silence because this was how we were raised. I have heard that a lot. You better not tell them what's going on in this house. Okay, but I'm literally miserable and I can't tell you. Yeah. So then what happens? I can't tell them because it's our business, but I can't tell you because you don't support mental health issues.
It's definitely competing messages.
It is.
For sure.
Yeah, it is. Mental illness is a separate reality. It is. I have lived in different realities.
I have multiple realities all the time.
I'm just going to put that all the way out there. Okay.
Little bipolar humor. I'm living in multiple worlds and realities and minds.
Multiple.
All the time. And you know, one of the things about it, you know, we laugh and sometimes we laugh through the pain of it. But that's one of the gifts that I have realized my mental illness gives me, which is I have a gift for recognizing patterns in people, processes, and systems. And something else that my CRS kicked in and I can't remember what it was.
Hey, listen, it comes with the territory. You know, I'm CRS certified. Okay.
Right.
I got my doctorate in that. That's what I really got my doctorate in. That's CRS. Okay, so the next thing, absence from love, happiness, support, and reality. Wow. Literally, you are saying you are not supported, you are not happy, you do not feel loved, and you don't even feel like your life is real, what you're experiencing. Can you imagine having all of that compounded on you? And see, support is something that is my trigger, right? If I have something going on and I don't feel supported, I struggle. Yeah. I struggle because by the time I need your support, I am done. I have exhausted all of my energy and my strength. And now I need someone to put into me. You know what I mean? And so it just sounds like this person doesn't have anyone to put anything into them. It makes me sad. Like I'm gonna reach out to this person and say, hey, if you ever need to talk, hit me up on Facebook. I'm good. You could just let me know if you're okay today, you know, because literally that's all people want to hear. Are you okay? No, I'm not. Thank you for asking. And I need to get this off my chest, you know? I'm going to reach out to this person tomorrow. This is something that I am so familiar with. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. You're laughing, you're talking, you're eating. You must be okay. Yeah. I'm not okay. I want to die. That's what she said.
Yeah, the invisibleness. And because it's invisible, we're not believed.
And I said that, right? If you can't see it, you can't touch it, it's not real. It is very real, guys. It's
when in the past, it's been maybe 4 or 5 years that I was going through and dealing with fibromyalgia, but I just got diagnosed last year, summer. It was about ruling out what was in my body or not in my body. And the pain from fibromyalgia does not show up on a scan, right? It doesn't show up like, you know, an arthritis would show up. And so they call it this invisible disease because it's hard for people to believe you. It's hard for people to understand. Phyllis, you're AKA Showtime. I see you out there dancing, you line dancing, you doing this, you have followers on YouTube. How, please, you have chronic fatigue syndrome. And people don't know that sometimes I can't even get out of bed, or the pain in my body is so bad that I can't even get myself dressed. Right. And so it's invisible. And, you know, it was even hard sharing it with my husband because he lives with me. And I'm like, I'm not going to be believed. And so it really then makes you want to isolate yourself. So when you are in pain, people will believe you. Yeah. It's a very sad, you know, process and that you go through. And so getting support and help to be able to get out of your head, for me, was imperative. Because with a fibromyalgia diagnosis, your body is betraying you. And you start thinking, what the heck is going to happen to me?
Right.
And like with, depression, where you get a lot of not being able to concentrate and a lot of confusion, there's also something in the fibromyalgia diagnosis that's called fibrofall, where you kind of lose where you are.
So that's completely mental.
Yes.
It affects your mental capability.
Yes.
Wow.
And and being a person who has to listen to people talk about very difficult, important issues around race, class, gender, identity, and sexual orientation and religion, and not be able to repeat back something to them that's meaningful, that they just shared in a very vulnerable way.
Yes. And they think you're not listening.
Unacceptable. It is unacceptable in my work. And to have hit those strides, and luckily one of my platforms and one of my presentation savvy is that I'm able to use humor. And so I'm able to play with my audience and participants to say, what did I just say? Just to make sure you all were listening.
Right.
Try to get a reconnection, but a sister is gone.
Lost. Right.
It's like, what the heck was I just saying?
Right. Yeah.
And
I get it.
It happens because your body is in pain so much that the different receptors in your body and your brain is on overload, that it short circuits. And so you have these moments of just kind of being disconnected from things.
Now let me just, because I definitely, we're going to get into the symptoms and things like that later, but excuse me, with your fibromyalgia, I have physically seen you in pain, right? And so one thing that I've learned from you is I ask, do you want to be touched? Do you want to be held? Like if I see someone is upset or not happy, I've learned that from you, because you're the type of person, you don't want that attention. So it kind of gives you anxiety that, oh my God, they're looking at me and they think that I'm not okay. And I'm not okay, but I don't want you looking at me like that.
No, I'm not okay.
So how do you deal with that? I mean, it's just crazy to have that type of trigger, something you can't control, affect your mental health like that. How do you deal with that?
I'm so glad you asked me that question, because that's something that has changed.
Oh, nice.
When we were out at your birthday dinner, I think it was, and I had that experience of just excruciating pain, and it just stopped me. I was speaking, it just stopped me in my tracks, and tears just start running down my eyes, and I kind of grabbed my wrists and things. After getting my education about my diagnoses, one of the things that I've learned is that I can't do physical reactions to a pain that's not really physical. For example, there is nothing that grabbing my wrist does for me.
Really?
When I'm in pain.
Really?
The pain is in my wrist.
But it doesn't give you any relief to grab it.
But grabbing it doesn't give me any relief. Right? So I'm doing physical reactions to symptoms that you don't often really feel in that physical way.
Okay.
And so what I've had to learn to do is retrain myself to say, Phyllis, yes, you are having pain right now in your left wrist, but touching it is not going to make it better. It's only going to do the thing that you don't want, which is bring more attention to yourself.
Bring more attention to yourself.
A mental game. It is a mental conversation that you're having with yourself all the time. And one of the 16 things on that wheel for fibromyalgia is when you're in pain, you gotta move.
Really? Don't allow it to paralyze you.
Don't allow it to paralyze you. You have to do the very opposite of the thing that your body is telling you you cannot do.
Wow.
So disease really is a mind trip.
Right.
It is a mind trip. And education. I cannot stress it enough. If anyone and everyone in the fibromyalgia department at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, here's this shout out to you. You have changed my life.
Yes. Thank you, Mayo Clinic. Seriously. Yeah.
You look,
'Cause I was there
know it.
through it. Yeah, I
You've
was
gone
there
through
with
it
you.
me.
Okay.
You know, as Essence said, she's my executive assistant for my company,
Mm-hmm.
and she knows
Yeah.
when I can't move, when I can't get out,
Yes.
when I'm saying the pain is so bad.
Yeah.
Not only can I not be on camera, but I can't speak. I literally can't talk.
Yeah. And I don't even think you could even type, because I literally see your hands,
Yeah,
you know?
it gets pretty bad.
Yeah.
And so you've lived with me through that. And so I've learned through my education that not having those physical reactions help.
Right.
And then what that leads into is when I don't have people saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?
Right.
Are you okay?"
Right.
Then I'm thinking more about my pain. And what we've learned from the research,
Mm.
mind blower, what we've learned from the research is that just thinking about pain
Mm-hmm. Causes pain.
sends a message to your body that you are still in pain.
Right.
So that's where meditation
Okay.
comes in, where
Yes.
I am the opposite. Phyllis, you are not in pain. You are designed and wonderfully made in this moment.
Amen.
You are not in pain. It does not last forever. It will subside.
Yeah.
It will, you know, it. This is years. Let me tell y'all, I struggle. I mean, I've been balled up on the bathroom floor crying because I didn't know what this meant for the livelihood or the trajectory of my life.
Right.
You know, I often share with people, you know, one of the things that really scared me was, you know, my husband and I, we have a generational difference. He's a generation older than I am. And one of the things in deciding to marry him, I had to be real with thinking about what will long-term care look like as we progress and as we get older.
Older, yeah.
And when I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
just the thought of my husband that's older than me having to take care of me rocked my world. It rocked my foundation, it rocked my core, and then that fed into my depression and feeling sad, and then that led into me getting behind in work and duties, and then that leads to anxiety that, oh shoot, I got so much stuff to do, and it's just this cyclical
it's just a cycle, yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
you get in.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny that you even brought that up, because I was going to ask you, like, when you realized that, how did that affect your mental health? Like, because I don't ever think about if I'm going to need care when I get older. Like, that's so far removed from my mind right now, you know, and maybe that's not good.
I have been thinking about long-term care for my parents because they're in their mid-70s. I have been thinking about long-term care for my husband because he's older than me. I prepared, you know, I got a little documentation. I got a little
Okay.
policy for myself, but I didn't think about I need this policy for my long-term care. It's going to be to take care of my daughter, to help out with expenses that I leave behind, but not for my long-term care. Are you kidding me? That rocked my world. And I had to go through a process of grief.
Yeah.
I went through those stages of being in denial and struggling and questioning and chaos and you know, and getting to acceptance, you know, bargaining. Right?
Yes.
God, please.
I have bargained.
God, please. I'll stop drinking if you take it away. Anything.
I promise you I won't answer his phone call no more. If you just remove this from me, Lord.
Look, you all know, and you know, get in my body. You know how bad this is right now. You in my body. You are a part of me. Just please take it away and I'll be better. I'll do better. I'll stop doing this. I'll start doing this. I'll keep doing this, right?
Yeah.
It's a trip.
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is. People, I mean, literally, like one of the things I didn't get to mention earlier, I don't know if you've ever been out with the girls or whatever, and you hear somebody say, girl, not to you, to someone else, you so bipolar.
Mhm. Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah.
cringes me
Yeah.
because you're making fun of something that's not funny. It's not funny. Find someone who is bipolar and ask them if their experience is hilarious. I promise you they will say no. It's
Yeah.
not funny. It's not, this is a real thing that people are suffering with.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put it on anybody. I promise you, you don't want it. I promise you, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share just a couple of more, and then we will move on to our personal experience. And then, we can just go back and forth and just kind of ask each other questions and just kind of, end it with that. This one was just really not able to live, but not able to die. Caught between happiness and disparities. That just when you think light can be found and anxiously awaiting, sudden darkness and depression.
Wow.
I have felt that way because, sometimes life is so heavy and so burdensome, right? And so when your mind is processing some of these situations that you're dealing with, from someone who doesn't suffer from mental illness, it may seem, oh, I can do this, it's fine, like I could get through this. But for somebody like myself, or I don't know, you have to speak for yourself, sometimes situations just seem like I'm not going to be able to survive it. You know what I mean? But then I want to give up, but I can't, right? Because I got these kids. Like,
yeah.
what am I going to do? They have to be taken care of. They have to be raised, right?
Yeah.
So I remember, excuse me, a while ago, the kids were probably around 4 or 5. And my therapist said to me, she said, your kids are saving your life. They are, and they don't even know it. No, because I can't commit suicide. I can't jump. I can't, because then who's going to take care of my kids? Right? So it's like, I'm not even going to lie, today was a hard day. Okay? Today was the first recording of my podcast. I'm excited to do it with you, but everything has to be in line. And that's the other thing that we suffer with mental illness, perfection. A lot of people I know that have mental illness are perfectionists, right? And so we kind of beat down on ourselves because it's not perfect. This has to be in line. This has to be in line. No, it doesn't. So I have really tried I do jump feet first in a lot of stuff, but for my mental illness, I have to break things down. So let's say I need to clean my room, which is barely happens, but let's just say I have to, right? Listen, I can't clean this whole room today.
Right.
But what I'm going to do, you see that dresser right there? I'm going to clean that dresser, and then I'll revisit after that.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel good. Okay, let's move to the shoes. It's like you literally I have literally had to break my life down sometimes into compartments in order to even deal with it. And I don't know if people understand that. So when I read this, Phyllis, to say you can't live, but you can't die, to say that you are caught between happiness and disparities, I can relate to that. And it can happen. You can literally be through the roof and 5 minutes later be 2 feet in the ground.
Yeah.
Literally. That's how quickly it can change. I don't even know if that's enough to help someone really understand what we deal with, because it's so complex.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to really get your arms around, because it's not like other kinds of diagnoses. It's
Right.
not like diabetes, right? It's
Right.
not like cancer.
Right. No.
It's not like a heart disease where
Right.
there's a surgery, or there are shots, or transfusions, or medications, where there's some medications for us, but not for a cure. They're more for a livable life in situation, but not a cure. It's and the invisibleness of it,
Right.
and how it's so different for different people also
Mm-hmm.
sometimes invalidates what it is.
Yeah. Right, because how it shows up for you is not how it shows up for me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But it doesn't discredit yours or mine because it doesn't look the same.
yeah,
I'm sure we're still both very uncomfortable.
yeah.
And it's not a competition either. Okay, yeah, okay, you might get a little headache, girl, and I don't get to sleep. No, it's not a
Right.
competition at all, you know? I do want to share one last one. I'm not going to comment on it. I just want you to comment on it. And then I want to move into the factual information as far as the statistics so people can understand how many people are really affected by this, okay? Excuse me. The last one states it's a war featuring who you are against uncontrollable disruption. I've always said the nature of our illness, while so beautiful at times, is also the epitome of hell on earth. Suffering for decades and what feels like an eternity if not treated right.
You know, people often say that I am wise beyond my years. And I think it because it does feel like I've been through hell and back.
Right.
Sometimes it feels like I've lived multiple lives. And my mental illness was different or progressed or regressed or was dormant in different stages throughout my life. One of the things, given how clear and in tune the person was who wrote that last comment, I just really hope, it seems like they're in tune. I really hope that they won't spend another decade if they still are in it, and that they will reach out and get some type of support. It can just start with a phone call.
And listen, guys, we can even take it a step further, okay? Because I understand that if we were raised with that stigma and that bias, maybe you don't even want to go to a doctor. When I realized that I was suffering with something after I gave birth to my children, I didn't go to a doctor first. I found a support group. Like I looked it up and I was like, this sounds like postpartum. Let me see if I can find any postpartum groups. And that was really what started. Like, okay, let me see if they could offer some things to cope. Let me see if these people are dealing with the same thing I'm dealing with. Let me find out how they dealt with it.
And now, given, unfortunately with COVID, and we're having to do so much in kind of Zoom platforms,
virtual, right?
You can join a group on the other side of the world, and nobody has to know who you are.
Nope, you don't even have to turn your camera on.
Right.
So if you are a person like, oh, something is right, if you don't want to go to the doctor, fine. Find a support group. Find a support group. Because what excuse me, I can't get rid of this cough. What I have noticed is having someone who has the same experience helps. Because no one really can understand it unless they're in it. They could be empathetic, right? But sometimes I could say things to you and you'll be like, yeah, I get it, right? Or we could be in the middle of something and I mean, I don't have the fibromyalgia, of course, but I get foggy. And I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? What is she talking about right now? Hold up. Did I miss something? So guess what? Now I'm doing you. I have a gang of books and I'm constantly writing notes because I don't know if that's a symptom of the mental illness or if that's a symptom of the meds. But even my mom has expressed a lot of, memory issues around this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and we have to, we just got to know that at some point, whether you are for or against, medication,
right.
At some point there's going to be some side effect of some sort.
something. Yeah.
And that's the other reason why, for me, talk therapy is so important, because it can minimize and lessen the amount of prescriptions that you have to take. And so that self-care piece, again, you know, I'll never say medicine does not solve everything. You know, sometimes just good old talk helps.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm good for getting a good old talk. Can I get 5 minutes? And it'd be like an hour. But listen, you know, I'm working on me, right? Okay. I'm going to be a little bit more transparent that this might take an hour of your life. Do you have it? But the intent is there. It just doesn't always match the effect, right? I'm learning that as well. The intent does not always match the effect. So yeah, I just want to go over a couple little facts, and then I got one last question for you, and we are home free. Okay. I did want to get a little bit more information, because we did discuss what personally you feel is the definition of mental illness. So I did go to 2 reputable organizations, one being the American Psychiatric Association. You can find their website at psychiatry.org. And they had a page that says, what is mental illness? So keep in mind what I just shared, everyone else defined as mental illness. And let's look into the actual scientific or medical definition of what it is. Mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, in parentheses, or a combination of these. Mental illnesses are associated with distress and or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. They do have on there, and I was like so proud of them for this, Phyllis. It says, mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. Let's say that again. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. Stop letting these people who don't know any better shame you. We have reputable organization. It is not something to be ashamed of. It is a medical problem, just like heart disease or diabetes. Really good. Just want to throw this in there. You know, one of my children have ADHD, and I had family members say, don't put her on that medication. Don't give her that. Find other ways. Do a holistic. Give her caffeine. Give her some espresso. She don't need no medicine. And so, you know, I really fought it for a while. I fought medicating her, and she was failing in school. So not medicating her wasn't helping. And so I went to her doctor and I said, you know, her family members and my friends are telling me not to do this. And he said, okay. So she had diabetes. Would you give her medication? I said, absolutely. She'll die. Wow. He was like, it's the same thing. Mind you, I'm a mother with mental illness, and I'm struggling with that decision for my child. And I know how medication for me has made my life, you know, more able to enjoy, you know what I mean? Because without my medication, I can't sleep. So that was a struggle for me. Like, do I give her medication? So anyway, sorry, I said all of that. But yes, it is nothing to be ashamed of. It is a medical condition, and you treat it the same way you treat any other medical problems you have, okay? I do want to share these statistics. Nearly 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience some form of mental illness. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, in 2017, that actually equated to 46.6 million people with mental health issues, with mental illness. Yeah. So it's a lot more common than we really know or even think. Do you want to share anything about that?
I think you said it all. I mean, I think, and the thing is, you just never know. Just think about whenever you're in a space, whenever you're on Zoom, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible mental illness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible mental illness, and it gets real then.
Yeah.
But so many people are still not talking about it, and that's one of the things that I find hope in, is that mental illness is becoming more of a conversation that's coming to the forefront of many other conversations. For example, now there is laws and policies in place where all police officers, I know in the state of Minnesota, this is a precedent, this is a law, that they have to get a certain amount of hours of training around mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And so
that makes sense because people have been with mental illness issues. Yeah.
Exactly. And how often is sometimes mental illness misconstrued for deviant, violent,
irrational
behavior?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to let you know too, according to psychiatry.org, 1 in 24 have serious mental illness. So here we go, 24 people out of anxiety and depression and all of that, one of them has some serious mental illness issues. And then the last statistic that I have, excuse me, 1 in 12 have a diagnosable substance use disorder because of mental illness.
And a lot of times those go hand in hand.
Yes.
That's another way we use the word comorbid.
Right.
That, not only maybe do you have major depressive disorder, but you also are an alcoholic. Right? And oftentimes a lot of folks are drinking
to self-medicate
and self-medicate with anxiety and depression. So,
and I think too, I need people to even understand this, Phyllis. It may not even show up that way. It may not show up with alcohol. It could show up with promiscuity.
Yes.
It could show up with spending all your money instead of paying your bills.
Gambling.
It shows up in a lot of different ways, And I always felt like, why did they umbrella everything under bipolar? You know what I mean? But I think it's just they don't really know how to explain why it happens.
Yeah, and let's do remind the audience that the bipolar disorder exists on a spectrum.
Okay.
Right? And that we have bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. And sometimes a person's diagnosis may fit in between somewhere. And so with bipolar 1, the manic episodes are more exacerbated. And with bipolar 2, there's more depression there, and the manic episodes aren't as high or aren't as risky as a person with bipolar 1. And so we are, and that's just, excuse me, a recent change in the last diagnosis manual that is published. That's the desktop manual for therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists. And so that just
excuse me,
actually got added, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2.
So that's awesome.
We're continuing to do research and learn more to be able to better differentiate. And then we can give more accurate diagnosis, which leads to more accurate solutions for people.
And let me be clear, not everyone's mania is bad. My mania, I clean. And I clean, honey.
I get a lot of work done.
Me too.
Girl, I can pump out some PowerPoint. Let me tell you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm telling you, when you see me mopping the entire first floor of my house, I am manic, honey. Because that's a good 20, 30-minute job.
Yeah, so, and it's good to have people around you who know you, because now my husband, he knows when I am ramping up. Like when he sees me staying, now that my sleep is more regulated, when he sees me ramping up past 10:30 and I'm just pulling out my computer, he'll say, baby, is that work that you absolutely have to get done? You're going to get off track. You're going to get off track.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to say, just leave me alone, he is so right. He is so right. And he's so helpful because I am gearing up. I'm getting ready. And once I get on that thing and get started, I ain't going to bed.
Right.
I'm not going to bed. I'm going to go right into the next day.
Yeah.
And wonder why I collapse, 72 hours after that.
I did that the other day. I stayed up to 2 o'clock in the morning, getting my commentary together, getting this together, getting this together, getting that together. Woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do it again. Went to the gym. By 5 p.m., your girl was done. I was tired. It was like, okay, you have a lot going on, but you still have a lot going on, right? So you got to keep that in mind, because the minute my sleep fails, that's when all else fails. So last night, 10 o'clock, shut everything off. You got to go to bed, girl. You got to function.
Yeah.
You know, and these are things that's important to know about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, as you're learning, once I realized this is it ain't going nowhere, I got to take these meds, girl, I'm good. Now, I'm not saying I don't still have bad days, but I don't have what I had. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Just to give you guys a little bit more information about this, the Mayo Clinic did provide an amazing list of some symptoms, examples of signs and symptoms that are related to mental illness. They, like we mentioned, they could vary, definitely depending on the disorder. I am the bipolar 1, so I am more manic than someone who might be bipolar 2.
I'm too.
So of course we are. Of course we're the different spectrums of it, right? So just to give you some ideas, feeling sad or down, confused thinking, reduced ability to concentrate, excessive fears or worries, extreme feelings of guilt, extreme mood changes of highs and lows, withdrawal from friends and activities, significant tiredness, low energy, problem sleeping, detachment from reality or delusions, paranoia or hallucinations, inability to cope with daily problems or stress, inability to cope with daily problems or stress.
Message.
Just give you a little side eye real fast. Seriously, why you ain't shower today? Because I can't. Because the Mayo Clinic said that I am unable to cope with daily problems or stress. Leave me alone. I'll shower tomorrow. Trouble understanding and relating to situations and to people, problems with alcohol or drug abuse, major changes in eating habit. I've seen that. Sex drive changes. Hey, if we don't feel 100, sex drive changes. Excessive anger, hostility, violence, or suicidal thoughts. Those are the symptoms that the amazing Mayo Clinic, who took care of my friend here, shared with us regarding mental illness. So if you feel any of these symptoms, if you don't want to reach out to a doctor, reach out to a friend. On my website, I have a page, a mental illness page. It has some support groups you can call. If you just need somebody to talk to, there's numbers on there that they have people that just listen to you. You know, if you are feeling any of these symptoms, I definitely recommend you to reach out to someone who will make sure you're okay and make sure that you're safe. Is there anything you want to add to that, Phyllis?
Thank you. Well said.
Great. Thank you so much. So just to wrap it up, I'm so excited to have had you on my first episode. Girl, we about to wrap it up. For real.
Wrap it up.
For real, when we're done. But what I would like to ask you to share with everybody, excuse me, and I just want you guys to know, I think she is extremely wise. I call her for a lot of things. And I was so honored when you said, sign me up. Like when I came to you and I said, Phyllis, this is what I got going on. And I don't want to be silenced anymore. And I want to talk about mental health issues. And I want to be an advocate. And I want to read. And you were like, girl, sign me up. What you need me to do? So I appreciate that support. That's the type of support we're talking about. You know, and I just don't want to be silenced anymore. I don't. Do you?
No, ma'am. And you know, tonight in a big way was a coming out for me, because I've never talked about all of my diagnoses verbally, publicly, in this way. And so it was vulnerable yet freeing, and it's meaningful. I know that I know that I can bear this. Yeah. And I know that I can bear this in a way where hopefully my life and my living through it and with it can be an inspiration for other women who are experiencing some of the same things.
And let me just tell you, you are, again, phenomenal. I love hearing you speak. I love everything that you do about what you do because you're just so great at it. We didn't even really get to bring up the whole soul experience. That's a big deal, guys.
You
We
can have
will
me
be
back.
we will be talking about that. Absolutely. We didn't get to talk about Selfish Sister Weekend, where she gets us together, and we have a girls' night. What last year we did painting. We painted. We had drinks. We had a VIP party the night before. Then we met together for a workshop where we bared our soul and we danced and we had great food and we had mimosas. And then she sent us home feeling refreshed. And I promise you guys, as soon as it's up, I will let you know when her site is back up. We had to take it down for a little bit to fix some things on it, but we will get it back up because I'm talking about a person who puts something into women. This is her. She puts it into women.
Thank you
So, but
so
she
much.
ain't got no time. So don't be asking her for no mentoring because she already mentoring me. So far all the way back. Because it took me a good year to get it so far. All wait in line.
There's enough of me to go around.
I don't know about that. Maybe for one day,
Yeah.
know.
I just want to say to all of my sisters out there, hang in there. You are beautiful. You are wise. Continue to be bold and allow your intuition, allow your gut to really lead you to take risks and try as often as you can to really think and live life like, what have I got to lose?
Yeah.
What have I got to lose? And so I'm going to go for this next thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to try out this next thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to school and do this thing or get this certification.
Yeah.
I know that in life, a lot is on us and we get really, really tired, but I'm telling you, there's no better person to invest in than yourself. And
Yes.
it will give you that renewed spark for life that you need and that you deserve, that you frankly deserve. So I just want to say thank you all for joining in and listening. I hope there was something that we said here today that was helpful to you. And as Essence said, check me out on my website at www.pinkconsultingllc.com.
Absolutely. It will be in the notes, so you guys could go check out her page. Again, this is the most amazing Phyllis Braxton of PINK Consulting. My name is Essence Clark. I'm so happy you tuned in with me. I just want you to know, episode by episode, I want to take this gag off of us. I want us to be able to say, this is who I am, and this is how I think, and this is what I have to say about it. And you have to be okay with it. They have to be okay with it. So until next time, please make sure you check on your strong friends. And we'll see you for the next episode. Guys, have a great evening.